Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. I'm allergic to microphones. Sorry. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for December 12, 2018. Did everybody have a moment to review those?
I have copies here. I know I emailed them to everybody. I don't know if you guys want copies.
I'll take a copy of it actually, because it was really a lot to read.
Yeah.
Yep.
75 pages, I believe?
Yeah,
It's massive.
to be exact.
Ridiculous.
I'm good. I read electronically.
I have one, yeah, I printed it. But thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Did anybody have any questions about the minutes? Motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as written.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item, downtown and waterfront urban renewal plans update.
Madam Chairperson, we do have Bill Roth. He's the Fall River planner, and he has been working on passage of the urban renewal plans. So he did attend the last city council subcommittee meeting and is prepared to give you an update.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. The committee meeting, the consultant was not able to be there. They had another public hearing, so I did the best job I could to answer the questions. There were a lot of several outstanding questions from several of the counselors. I've requested that they submit those in writing to me so I can get them to the consultant. I know that Ms. O'Connell and Kathy, I sent you kind of a brief synopsis of went over when I sent the message to the consultant. I met with, I saw the counselors last night and reiterated to please get me those questions that they had. A lot of it revolved around some of the properties, the takings, should we try to move the DPA line. I don't really want to, that's a whole process in itself to deal with the DPA. I think that's outside the scope of the urban renewal, and I told them that. So the crux of it is that we're going to look at having another committee meeting, and that has not been scheduled yet. I talked to Vice Chair LeBeau about that. She did wish me to, when we did schedule a meeting, to send out yet another notice to the affected property owners on the takings list. So I will look at doing that. I told her in doing that will, that affects timing because we want to give them at least 10 days or 2 weeks notice. So right now, I'm waiting for the questions that the counselors had, because they had some pretty in-depth questions. I'll get those to the consultant and then look at scheduling, working with the counselor to schedule the meeting. And hopefully, it sounded like we could do it within the next month or so, knowing that there's about a 2-week lag time that I want to give for sending notice out to the property owners. So that's kind of where we are. And then one of the things, I have received numerous emails, some property owners wishing to be taken off of the takings list, that and I think some of their, and then I think this is a decision that the board needs to look at weighing in on. Some of the properties, when this process was started several years ago, were vacant, underutilized, or abandoned. Some of the folks that have asked to be removed have renovated, or they're at full occupancy, or they've done significant upgrades, and probably makes sense that they not be on the list. So I'm going to work with the consultant and kind of have them take the takings, the 2 maps of the identified properties, and then identify the ones that are specifically removed, and then maybe we can evaluate what has changed and transpired in this couple-year period since when we first started this process. And are there any questions?
No, I just wanted a couple comments on where you went with that, because I did get a letter, as I'm sure that you did, from the Luciano Galito.
Yes, that
A
was
couple times.
the property at the end of Columbia Street that we looked at, that the administration wanted to look at adding, and I did get that, the car
So
dealership.
I do think, you know, the sooner we can have the meeting with the consultant, just to start narrowing down a little bit more of the process, so we can move forward with the city council and the state and keep the ball moving.
Yeah.
A month seems like a long time. I know we've been waiting a long time, you know, for this process. But if there's any way that you could see if we could speed that meeting with the consultants back
Oh,
with.
we could
with
probably
Norman.
meet with a consultant. We could meet with a consultant sooner rather than later. That's just, I'm talking about the committee meeting and with the consultant lining that up. I need about a 2-week, a little more than, if we're gonna give the property owners a 2-week notice, then I need a little bit of time to send out the, I don't know, the however many hundred mailing that goes out, and then figuring out scheduling that meeting. I'm hoping that we could have the committee meeting within the next month, but if you want to meet with a consultant sooner rather than later, I mean, they're your consultant, so we can meet at any time.
I think it would benefit everybody if we could meet. I mean, I'm sure, you know, Lorianne and Michelle and Bob are relatively new to the board, so they might not have gotten a gist of both plans and the extent of both the plans. It's been open for review. But, you know, there's certainly, I see, you know, you also got the letter here, you know, from the Historic Society, so they posed some
Yes.
questions.
Mhm.
And I think if they can be invited as well to the meeting with the consultants, so we can have just let's fresh everybody up, get everybody on the same page and answer some of their questions as well.
Okay, so that's more of a consultant meeting with the RDA, correct? That
Yes.
you'd like?
Yes, that's
Would you
what
like
I'd
it
like.
during the day or at night?
I think if we have a couple options out there for all board members to be available, obviously we all work, so nighttime and some of the Historic Society, nighttime would probably be best, to see if we can get some of their answers, as posed in the letter that I received from them on Wednesday, January 2nd. They have some comments and questions they would just like some answers to. So maybe we could try to get another meeting, whether, you know, obviously a special board meeting with RDA, because we would be over a quorum.
Right.
However would be the best way to go about that, just so we can kind of get everybody on the same page and see if we can continue to keep the ball moving forward to get these plans put in motion.
Now, you as members, do you have copies of the latest plan?
I do. Do
I
all
don't
the board
even
members
look
have
at it.
copies of the latest plan?
May is not the latest.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I will make sure, I have those, I can have those sent down to the print shop tomorrow and get those printed.
That'd be great.
Okay.
And then reach out to the consultant, or if you want, you know, me to do it, Michael, you know, whoever would you like to reach out and try to set up a meeting, reach out to the Historical Society, so we could all be on the same page. That'd be wonderful.
Okay.
You can just have a special meeting with one item agenda and just post it.
Yeah.
If you have a
That'd be
quorum, you have a
great.
quorum. If you don't, you don't.
That'd be wonderful. I think we
Okay.
really need to keep the ball moving forward.
Okay, I'll call the consultant tomorrow and look at trying to propose some dates over the next week, or maybe next week sometime.
Thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any other questions for him on those two plans?
The only question is, can you send those files electronically?
I can't, they are actually large files. If you go on the city's website, they're all posted on the website and you can download them. They're larger than our system will send out.
So the most current version of the plans are at the city website?
Are on the city website, yes, they are. So,
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
no problem.
Thanks.
Have a nice evening.
I'll be here later.
The next item on the agenda is the city pier update regarding docks and moorings.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. My name is Scott Skonek with Bolt Sealy. Engineering. Okay. Scott Skonek with Bolt Sealy Engineering. We were the successful bidder, GRP, to redevelop some area. And just wanted to talk about our scope and where we think we're headed with the project. our understanding is that we want to bring this site through preliminary design, through what we think is permittable at this local, state, and federal level, and through a design that you could move forward with as a municipality or present to a developer as a starting point and say, this is a design that is permittable. Here are your permits. They're good for 3 to 10 years. Here's available water depth. These are the vessels that you could bring in here. Here's what you have for available parking. And we don't intend that the final design is something that someone's going to take and carbon copy and build, but I think it's really going to enhance the site to have a placeholder design that they know is feasible, constructible, and has been pre-approved, rather than a developer coming in and having to debate what's permittable at all 3 levels, local, state, and federal. You know, what are the limitations based on the site contaminants that we know exist, and the limitations based on that. And what you could expect for vessels, or what you expect for slip fees and things like that. So we've done this type of study for cities like Gloucester, for New Bedford. We're working on one for Boston right now. And we'll roll permittability, future construction costs, and what we think an income stream is all into one report. And then you'll have different alternatives to choose from for different facets of it, whether it's how many vessels, how far you'd like to go out, whether you want a building, whether you want facilities, and the cost related to all that. So you can pick a path forward, whether you want to develop it yourself or go to a third party. And that's our understanding of the scope. We are a waterfront firm. That's all we do. We have 30 waterfront engineers in Marion, Massachusetts, and we have another 6 in Newport, Rhode Island. So you're right between the 2 offices. That whole staff is available. All the vessels are local. There's no out-of-state groups really involved or personnel. Are there questions on our scope, or where we're headed, or questions on our proposal?
Do any board members have any questions at this time with their scope? We did all read their presentation.
The scope, you mentioned the plans, you're going to get it fully planned. Does that include fully permitted, ready to go?
That would be, so we expect to come to this board with 2 alternative designs, and we expect to bring one of those designs through all the permits. So that's conservation here in Fall River, that's DEP for Chapter 91, and that's at the Army Corps of Engineers at the federal level. And where we would need guidance from you as a group is what you want. We would, to get a longer term on some of these permits, we'd recommend, try to spend a little extra effort and get a 10-year permit instead of a 3-year permit, so that these things are just open for a longer period of time. That's especially important at the federal level, where regulations can change. If you have a permit already, that won't affect you. So we'll advise you on a path forward on that.
Okay. Another question I have is the board was told that our former consultant signed the agreement with EPA that there could never be any type of building on the city pier, period, and there was no shot of that happening. Do you agree with that, or do you think there's alternatives?
So we think there are alternatives to that. We've read that document. And if you go to Dartmouth right now, we have a building that's half on the Waterhoff land. We designed that structure. It has similar site constraints, and a pile-supported structure, and proud of the pier over the water, could provide all the bathrooms, locker rooms, any sort of offices space you need. And we could also at the same point negotiate, maybe try to renegotiate some of that language with the EPA. But there is an alternative. If that language is in stone, there's a path forward to get you everything that you need over the water that isn't affected by that document.
And would that process be included in the scope of your contract, this
Yes.
contract?
So
going back to the EPA?
Well, the EPA is a stakeholder in the Army Corps permit,
Okay.
so they will weigh in at that time. That document will come out again, and they'll weigh in at that point. So if you get an Army Corps document for development of the site, and the EPA agrees to it, then that becomes a law of the land. That supersedes it.
So we would expect you, as per the scope of the agreement, to take that all the way through to the finality, if you will, to get a determination one way or the other if we can put a building on that.
The way we understand our scope in terms of the RFP is you could take our final deliverable and build something. You could build it yourself, someone else could build it, but we don't intend to leave you with anything to do after that other than find a contractor.
And so, when you say you're going to examine, every available option for us, so, you would also let us know on the main property if we could build a structure on there, any
Yes.
type of building, whether it
Correct.
be supported on pilings like Situate has, or anything else.
Correct. Yeah, we would
And
explore.
the size and encompass everything.
We would explore foundation types, and we would, upon selection of alternative, give you that cost estimate for that work. What's not included is this to bring this to 100% design, because you'd want to decide who's going to do the project, whether it's municipality or private.
When the Chapter 91 people, DEP, issued the permit for the marina, are there requirements that you have facilities and services for the marina? In other words, if we were to say, we're going to build a marina, but we can't have a building and we can't do any facilities, would they permit that?
They would want some sort of facilities. Okay, we can talk about, and of course they're going to want everything to be universal, have universal access, but if you develop it as a public facility, they're going to want bathrooms and locker rooms probably as a minimum. And you would want that too for developable, for a parcel that's desirable.
So would it make sense to go forward with the possibility of the building on the property before doing the other thing, or you do them parallel to each other?
So you'll have an alternative that has a building over the water,
Okay.
where you have no, your hands aren't tied at all. And you may or may not have an alternative of building on land, depending on how that EPA document hems us in.
So you seem pretty confident that one way or the other, we'll be able to put a building to service this marina?
There's no document that currently exists that prevents you from building a building over the water. And there's numerous municipalities and redevelopment authorities that we've built buildings over the water for. And because you have no excavation in that situation, no material disposed of, then we don't see why you couldn't do that.
In terms of the 3-year and 10-year permitting, what are the requirements? What differentiates from the 3-year to the 10-year?
Sure. So 3-year versus 10 years primarily at the federal level. Your local conservation can give you up to a 3-year notice of intent, an issue order of conditions, and they can extend that numerous years, and that'll be up to them. The Army Corps can issue a 3-year permit, which is a PCN, which is a lower level review, or they can issue a 10-year individual permit, and the only difference is it takes longer for a review. And I don't feel like, given the nature of this project, it's worth pushing for a faster review and sacrifice 7 years of permit validity. So we would recommend to you that you go for the individual permit and attempt to get 10 years. They can deny it and just say, we approve the project for 3. But we would attempt to get 10 years so that you have the longest window possible.
I have another question. A pretty substantial amount of that contract pertained to mooring fields. And I'm not sure what the dollar amount or what the breakdown was towards the mooring fields. I think it was like $10,000 or $12,000, something like that.
So we didn't do a breakdown. When we looked at this proposal, the optional tasks that were listed was the Army Corps permit and a CZM permit. And to us, those are permits that are required for the building and marina anyway. So we never separated out the mooring piece to us. We know you needed a hydrographic and basically an underwater survey anyway, so you knew on how much water you had under your floats. So we never included, it's a day of hydro, whether we do the moorings and the floats or just the floats. So we never included any extra time for that.
So it's not a big dollar figure then?
The mooring, to go forward with the mooring?
Yeah, the mooring aspect of it seemed to be
It's not.
not
To us.
It didn't seem worthwhile to me at all. I don't think we need it at all. There's no permitting needed for the mooring, so I didn't know why we're paying for
I
something.
mean, I would recommend that if we're doing a survey, why not survey it?
Right.
Because you're getting 8 hours in the water.
Right.
Let's get a little extra data, and you can use it for whatever. You want to use it for moorings in the future.
Okay.
Or you want to use it to justify dredging in the future, so you can prove that it filled in, because right now you don't have that data. With that permit, the plan
Okay.
exists.
Any other questions from the board members? When are you going to start?
We intend to start as soon as possible because we would prefer not to be on the water as it gets colder and colder and we have a chance of floating ice. So we would like to get the hydro survey done as soon as possible.
And what's your normal timeframe reporting back to the board with each step of the way on what you find?
So the first thing we would do is do the underwater survey and submit the plan to the board. And we would have that plan done probably 3 weeks after we do the survey. So we've been holding off the field work until this meeting. Following this, unless there's an objection, we'd like to green light the survey crew and get them out of there.
So we could almost expect like a monthly update from someone from
Sure.
your firm?
For myself.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
No.
No, I have one more question. How does the fact that the infrastructure and storm drainage hasn't been installed yet affect what you're going to do and what the potential is for us?
So where the stormwater is going to come in is at the conservation level. Chapter 91, at the DEP level and the Army Corps aren't really concerned unless you're adding a new stormwater outflow. We would have to get the stormwater, at least on paper, to get an approved order of conditions if we're doing the parking area and doing the stormwater that you've already agreed to under the past project. So that would have to be rolled in. I think we could get approval from conservation on our piece, and then you could handle your stormwater later before you build it. There's a requirement that the order would have a condition that says the stormwater application has to be approved before you could build this marina. And so we could separate the two, so one's not holding up the other.
So a quick question on the drainage and stormwater there. So say that we did find that we can put a building on the main portion of the property, albeit on stilts or anything. Would that affect the design and placement of the drainage and stormwater? Say that we put it in right now, and then we found out, hey, we can put a building. And then we have to take out what we installed.
Yeah, I would suggest at least letting us collaborate with whoever's coordinating the stormwater placement, because there's definitely places you don't want to build it.
Right.
And we can draw some boxes on the plan now and rule places out that are safer for stormwater. We may want to leave some boxes open for available.
Right, so we're not necessarily in a horrible position without having that in the ground right now. We could almost be to an
It's an
advantage
advantage
right now because we don't have to take it out and move it if we can in fact put a building on the property.
Right.
Thank you.
I do have another question. How long before you would actually submit plans for Chapter 91? I mean, till the scope of your project is done and you submit the plans to
So we
DEP?
would- Yeah, so long as we could get an alternative agreed upon, probably by, let's say, May.
Yeah.
We'd have all the preliminary design done. Come May, we're going to be ready to file Chapter 91. Chapter 91 is a 6 to 18-month process. So we'll file that permit first, see if they make any changes, and then file the other two. Because those windows are, the Army Corps is probably 4 months, and conservation 60 days, so long as we don't have anything. So we'll file the longest lead time. The Chapter 91 permit has to be signed by the governor, so that process can take a little longer. And then we'll do your permits in the order of which we think they take the most time.
And your contract goes right to the completion of the process?
It does. Our contract ends with your permits being submitted.
Any other questions from the board? Great, thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Next item is a financial update. Michael, will you be giving that to us?
Sure. If I can get through the coughing. Your first financial update is marked 3A1, 3A2, and 3A3. It is your income statement for your general operating. And I did a little tweaking on the report. As you can see, it's a little different format than what it was from last month's reporting. The first column is your first 11 months through the year. Your second column is just that month that we've just closed out, and you have your year-to-date in your third column. Right now, the balance on that account is $2,291,738.54. So if you have any questions concerning the layout or you want any changes, just please let me know. I thought this would work out the best to give you the full picture of the account throughout the whole year, and you will get the bank statement attached to that financial report on a monthly basis also. I don't know why your bank accounts and your statements end on the 15th of the month. It's a little bit more difficult that they don't fall at the end of the month, but we can figure it out. The other report is your operating parking garage account, which is 3B1, 3B2, and 3B3. Same format. The balance in that account is $166,403.49. I will have to meet with you, Kara, at some point, because there is that transfer that needs to be done. So I don't have access to do transfers, so I'll need you to do that for me to get the accounts in balance.
Just let me know whenever is convenient for you. I'll meet you at the
Cool.
bank.
Okay. C is the warrant schedule. What you have in front of you is all of the invoices, listing of invoices. The warrant total is $100,769.92. If you all remember, we agreed last month to follow the type of warrant procedure that is used in the city. Most of the, a big part of the total of the warrant was yard works on the old 2nd Street project. All of that invoice has been approved, signed by the architect, also signed by the contractor, and I believe you signed it, Kara. There is one, just so you know, I just want to make it apparent to you guys, there is one vendor name, which is myself. Your SAM registration was needed to be renewed, and the only way you can do that is through computer system, and you need to use a credit card. So I used my personal credit card because I didn't have another one. So if you could look at this, and it requires your signature on it, and once you sign it, Kara, I will cut the checks and get them to you and Laurie for your signature. Did it work out okay the last time? I had somebody from my office go to your work. I don't want to disturb you guys at work,
No,
but
that's fine.
as long as you're fine with that. The other piece of paper that you have, which is D, is your accounts payable register, which is the actual bills. This is called 3D in your packet. It's the actual bills that you have that are not up yet to be paid. That total is $24,728.04. There are some, as you can see, National Grid bill, 4 bills for the town of Freetown for property taxes, a couple bills from Johnson Fall River. There's a retirement board bill and a group insurance, small group insurance bill that will be taken care of. So that's the accounts payable register. And then on E, I'm not going too fast for you, hopefully. On E, you got the old 2nd Street project. We've basically put that project on hold right now because of the plantings, and those will be done, I guess, in the spring, coming up in March or April. The only changes that have happened to this report from last month's report was the payment of the yard works bill for $77,798.70. The 3 change orders, if you remember, you'll see them there, have all been approved, have all been signed off, and I am waiting for invoice number 2 from Yard Works, and they're going to include those change orders on that invoice, and we'll cut the check for that. So I'm hopefully you're happy with the layouts of the reports, and like I said, if anybody has any questions, if anybody wants to change anything, it's very simple. I am right now currently working on a trial balance for 2017. The trial balance is needed so that we can get a quote from Clifton Lawson Nelson to do your audit. I am working on that. I basically started it this week. We just got the records from your last consultant. Those records are in the room 420 on the 4th floor. So if anybody wants to stop by, look at the records. So I'm hopefully to have the trial balance done by the end of the week, over the weekend for next week, to give to the city administrator to start that process.
Thank you. Does any board member have any questions about these? I think the layout is easily explainable, Mike. I think, we can actually see the bills that are coming in, what's going out, our balances. It's well presented. Thank you. Any questions for Michael?
In terms of the yard work contract, the fencing, there was an issue with. Is that going to be addressed now in the spring?
The only issue of the fencing that was brought to my attention was the sturdiness of the fencing. I've actually gone out myself and personally looked at it, and the architect has been out there. It's sturdy. So we wouldn't have paid the bill if there was a problem with it. So I don't know aesthetically if you like it, but it's sturdy, I can tell you that.
So do we need a motion to
I would
approve
just
to
do a
pay these?
motion to approve the warrant.
I'll make a motion to approve the warrant.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
And then you sign it.
The next item on the agenda was the update regarding parking garages and business for better parking. But I did hear that the city is going to, they voted last night, and they are going to take over the parking garages and have that fall underneath the city.
So I guess the next step would be for Attorney Coughlin, Attorney Macy is aware. So
Want me just to send the draft to him? and-
Yeah, send the draft and coordinate with him. We also need to provide 90 days notice to the businessmen for better parking, AKA group, to notify them. There is a 90-day notice provision in there, and that would need to come from the Redevelopment Authority. Additionally, there is, I guess, a question about existing leases, and so we need
Right,
to
so there was
prepare-
the post office lease, which is expiring, and then there's the Travelers building.
Yeah, the
and
99
then
Main
what's
Street.
there's one more, there's a BBP, post office, and Travelers, I think are the three.
The 99, just so I would assume that the RDA would have to provide notice regarding the assignment
Yeah,
of
we would,
those.
we would do a deed and then an assignment of those leases.
Okay, so, and at that point, at some point, I guess they would have to be notified
Mhm.
of the change in ownership
do
as well, so.
I can do it.
But Attorney Mason's available if you want to coordinate the efforts with him. But the city council did approve acceptance
Mhm.
of the garages in the flat surface area. Additionally, there is an account that was established for maintenance and capital repairs. The agreement with BVP does specifically say that that is the property of the Redevelopment Authority, and the city is expecting that that account will transfer with the garages. They are planning on utilizing it for maintenance and capital repairs to the building. So if those steps are all approved, then we're ready to proceed.
So do you want the board to take a vote to authorize Kara to send notice to BBP? That's the only thing we haven't done, so.
I would suggest, if you think that would be
We
appropriate.
took a vote
for-
to authorize her to sign the deeds, but we didn't do anything about
BBP.
it. We just said, subject to all existing agreements.
Can I just ask a question and make a statement before we do that? So basically, at this point, do you have all the contracts that are involved with people who still have existing contracts?
We have the one with 99, I think it's 99 Main Street LLC, I think is the name.
Yeah,
That was
Post
the-
Office, 99, and BBP.
And BBP, we have
So
those
the
three
city's been
agreements.
given copies of all.
And
Right.
travelers?
That's the
Travelers and
99.
99 is the
That's the
same
99,
thing, yeah.
All right. Who negotiated that contract? Do we know?
It was negotiated, it started back in 2015, so it would have been your former consultant, and I'm assuming it was signed by your former chairman of the board, which was William Kenny. So they at least would have been involved with that negotiation. I'm not sure if it came to a full vote before the RDA board.
And that was for the 30-year contract?
Yes.
So just my memory of the history of that, there was, if you go back to the early 80s, when the Travelers building was first built, there was actually a special act that gave a 30-year lease to the occupant of that building. When that lease expired, the Redevelopment Authority went out to bid again, and that's the current one. So there's been a lease in place for that building from day one since that parking lot was built.
So the only comment I would like to make, I would just like to go on record, and this is just, I'm not speaking for the board, I'm speaking for myself. In terms of this transfer of property, I just want it to be clear that it had nothing to do with inadequacies as far as the board is concerned. The board did not go to the city to ask them to take these properties. The city came to the board and asked the board if we would return the properties to the city. Correct?
Yes, that was after the board had been notified, I guess, by BBP that they were no longer interested in providing the management services, so there was clearly going to be a void in that area.
So I just want to go on record making that statement that it wasn't a case of us wanting to just dump a property.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other comments regarding the parking garages?
I do. I have one question. Is this transfer, does it include Old Second Street too?
That's an interesting question. We're going to have to look at the deeds. I don't know if Attorney Coughlin has that with him. That question has come up.
So the way the vote read, we did this vote back in October, I think.
Yeah, like
if I
3 months
remember.
ago.
It was a vote to transfer Third Street and Pearl Street parking garages and lots and associated property. So that's the way we voted.
Yeah.
So I assume that that's what the
Yeah.
city's expecting.
I think if we're unloading, we should unload it all, and hopefully the city will take, because Old Second Street is, it's of no value to the Redevelopment Authority, it's of more value to the owner, whoever the owner of the garage is, because the access to the garage is, a large portion of it comes from Old Second Street.
I think we did do it as a complete whole.
Yeah.
That's the way we voted.
Is
That's
it
how
on
we
the same
voted.
deed though? So it's a separate parcel,
It's on the same plan, but separate parcels.
separate parcel? Okay, so you don't have to transfer it. But
We
again,
can-
if that's the board's intent, then that.
But we voted to transfer
I
all
think
of
our
them.
intent was to, so we didn't end up with these
Yeah.
little orphan strips of land
Yeah,
that we.
to me, it makes no difference, I'm just wondering about this ongoing contract for Old Second Street. If we can, dump the property on the city, we don't have to finish doing the contract, they can do it, to be honest with you.
I would respectfully suggest that
We're just following through.
the contract is an
That's a good
obligation
thought.
obligation of the Redevelopment Authority.
Okay.
However,
Nice
as
try.
far as the administrative services of that, Mr. Roth, our planner, is here this
Right.
evening, and he was just going to give you a quick update, that he's going to be assuming active oversight of that
Yeah.
project to completion. But,
I mean, I don't think it makes any difference, I'm just thinking for ongoing maintenance, and it only makes sense for the owner of the garages to also own the access point to it, which is Old Second Street.
Well, and also whoever clears the snow from the garage or the
yeah,
walkways,
yeah.
it also has to do with Old Second Street, because you have to have
The
access.
access right there. Yeah, so by no means do I think the board is gonna not continue with the plantings and finish off the project. I don't think that's our intent at all, to leave that hanging, and anybody hanging, as much as, Bob, you might like that. I don't think that's the intent nor the
Yeah.
purpose of the board.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next, Old
So,
Second Street up,
So I think we need a vote to.
Another vote?
To terminate the BVP contract, if that's what the city, if they're asking us to
Right.
terminate that as part of the transfer,
Okay.
we give the 90 days notice.
I make a motion
I make
to,
a motion to authorize the chair to terminate contract with BVP.
Send the 90 days.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next item, Old Second Street update, and the city planner can add to what Michael has already updated us on, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, at least I don't have to do the financials. Thank you, Mike.
Next month you will.
I've reviewed the contracts. I spoke with the architect, landscape architect, briefly this afternoon. He was getting ready to go into a meeting. I requested that he send me the bid specs and the plans electronically, because there's no copies of those. There's copies of the contracts. And then he wanted to really kind of I think he had a brief discussion with Mike about the way they were going to leave it for the winter. So I'm going to have more of a discussion on how the site's going to be buttoned up for the winter, and what our expectation is for that, maintaining safety. And then going to discuss the remaining items. We're trying to line, I think there's some planting, landscaping. Looked like, I walked it today, looked like there's some concrete work of some sort.
Irrigation? Irrigation.
Yeah, the irrigation. I saw a chain of emails, and I'm not quite sure if the electrical had been connected or not. That was roughly a month ago, when they were looking at doing that, connecting the electrical from the electrical panel at the parking garage, rather ironic, to the previous conversation. So that's kind of where we are with it, and we'll look at, just going to get up to speed with the architect, with Mike, on where the remaining items. And my main concern is getting it buttoned up more for safety for the winter. And it's pretty close right now. It's still got some chain link fencing up.
Yeah, just so the board knows too, I believe I got an email from Webster Bank, and they were a little concerned about how it looked, how it was going to be left for the winter. So I told them that, we would do our best to button it up to make it look halfway decent, I think there's some wood there, I think there's some more fencing that might be able to come down, so.
And get their signs back up.
They want their signs back, so I'll work with Bill on that.
And one of the things everyone keeps on asking me, the wooden slats, they are white cedar. They are not just pine. Everyone says that This, it looks like it's white pine, it looks like it's pine and it's just gonna rot. No, it's white cedar, so it can withstand the weather, so,
Great, thank you very much.
okay.
Next item on the agenda is proposed executive session. We have two items for that. One, to discuss strategy with respect to potential litigation regarding the city pier project. And the second item is to review and approve executive session minutes for December 12th, 2018. Do we have those findings?
Yep, so we'll need a roll call vote on both of those. I guess the question is there any old or new business? Because we're probably just going to adjourn directly from executive session.
I have one thing for old business. I think at this point, it's probably close to 2 months ago, that we unanimously voted to take the sign down on the pier, and it still stands today.
The Cove sign? Yeah, so Mike or Kathy, is there any way someone could help us go out there? I mean, I can go to do it with the chainsaw, it'd be real easy, but that's probably not how Peter wants his sign taken down.
We can follow.
He might own that sign.
I'll call Peter and
Yeah.
tell him that the sign needs to be removed.
Okay, great,
And get it on.
thank you. Anything else, Michelle?
Nope.
Joe, do you have anything to add?
No?
Kathy?
Just, yeah, thank you, Madam Chairperson. Under old business, just to alert the committee, we did in fact issue a request for qualifications for the real estate services for your current contract is expiring. That's going to appear in goods and services on January 14th. It'll be 2 weeks, and then once we get proposals, then we'll be back to you. So we should be able to get someone on board on or about the first part of February. And the second RFQ for engineering services for City Pier is also going to be posted in goods and services on that same date, January 14th, and those proposals will be due. I think those are due a month afterwards.
Thank you very much. Anything else under old or new business? So we're going to need two motions?
Yep, so under item 8, we need a motion to go into executive session for those two purposes. Under A, we need a finding by the chair that an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the public body.
I have that finding.
Okay, so we need a roll call vote to go into executive session for those two purposes, and that we will not return to open session.
Kathy, do you want to do a roll call?
Sure,
vote
roll
first?
call. Kara O'Connell,
Yes?
Laurie, I'm sorry,
That's bad.
Branco, Laurie Branco.
Yes.
Okay, Michelle Dion. Joseph Olivera.
Yes.
And Robert Smith.
Yes.
Yes, unanimous.